Alright folks, we're going to be wrapping up our introductory module. We've been talking kind of more and more about course content. So here we're going to talk a little bit about the main ideas behind the course and what you're supposed to get out of it. By the time you viewed this in the other videos and reviewed the additional documentation in Module 0, you should be all set to begin working on Module 1, start progressing through your textbook, completing homework, etc., etc. So here are some of the big ideas behind the class. So everybody here is almost invariably here because your major, whether it's psychology or something else, has basically made it mandatory for you to show some competency in statistics. Why is that the case? Why are we supposed to care about statistics as psychologists and in some of your other majors as well? Well, psychology and those other fields that folks come from are heavily grounded in empirical research. So even if you're not conducting research yourself, as many people do as they progress through their educations, you're still going to be reading and interpreting and applying the research of other people. So being fluent in how research works and how information is communicated, how to tell good results from dubious results from fictitious results, is a really important skill in all of those areas. Again, even if you don't plan to ever do anything with research. There's our little Pac-Man chart to help summarize some information about what does and doesn't look like Pac-Man. Additionally, even outside of your personal fields, we are constantly inundated with statistical results and research findings. We see it in discussions of politics, we see it in news articles and things that go viral in social media and discussions of sports. Almost any field that you might be interested in just casually, you are going to be seeing research results and statistical findings reported continually. And of course, there's the practical reason. This is not an elective for anybody who's taking it, almost certainly. You almost certainly are taking it because it's a mandatory course required by your major. Wanted to get a degree in your major, you got to get through this class one way or the other. So that's the practical short-term reason to care if the other ones don't move you. So again, statistics provide a powerful sort of framework that helps us figure out how the world works. We take things that are observable in the world around us, we break us down into what are called variables, and we figure out how those variables work, what typical scores are on the variables, how the variables relate to each other, what sort of causes changes in those variables. It really is sort of a key to the universe in a sense. That sounds like an exaggeration, but it's a very careful, universally applicable framework for, as precisely and as cautiously as possible, learning as much as we can about the world around us, including how to change it. So in all research, we are measuring variables, sometimes in one context, sometimes in many contexts. Sometimes we may be manipulating or altering a variable as well, and we have to make sense of those measurements, the information that we actually got. Statistics is how we make sense of that, and that's the big focus of the semester, is using statistics first to learn about the scores that you have, and then to make estimates about the scores that you do not. So what do our measurements tell us? What variables are they linked to? And what makes them change? Those are all things that statistics help us understand. Some key questions in research. First, how do you figure out what the most important variables are? There are thousands and thousands of different things that can vary in almost any context. How do you isolate the ones that actually matter? How do you determine that? How do you measure those variables as accurately as possible and as consistently as possible? Your research is absolutely worthless if you aren't actually measuring the variables that you intend to measure and you don't realize that. So a lot of work goes into making sure the measurements are as useful as possible, accurate, and as consistent as possible. We'll talk about that in Module 1. And here's the million-dollar question over the course of the semester. How can you tell the difference between pattern of results that mean something, that actually tell you something relevant about people in general, or whatever subgroup of people you're looking at, and what patterns that we kind of shrug at and say, that could have just been a fluke. There's not really a big difference. Putting this framework together, because again, it's not good enough to just eyeball it and decide. That's way too subject to bias. Putting a framework together that separates between results that we consider meaningful and results that we consider inconclusive is the focus of the first half of the semester. The second half of the semester of the course is just going to be variations on that same framework, applying it to different contexts. So answering this question right here is an absolutely crucial part of what we'll be building towards over the first several modules. So additionally, out of this course, again, I want you to be a good consumer of research, and that includes even professionally published research that you'll almost certainly be reading in your other courses or in graduate school. So it will allow you to kind of process or make sense of what might seem like complicated information right now. So for example, we've got a couple paragraphs from an article I published a while back. You see a lot of variables described in there, a lot of statistics, some M's and F. You have a P in here. Unless you know a little bit about stats, this is probably semi-gibberish to you. By the end of the semester, you should be able to read this and not only identify what these figures mean, but understand the picture they're painting about the research being described. So getting fluency in those concepts is another important skill. Even if you don't run research, it's going to help you make sense of the information you're going to get in a lot of other areas of your major. All right, so we're going to close things off in Module 0 with a brief assignment. Really, it's two assignments that kind of go hand in hand. Here's how they're going to work. Again, I mentioned one of the things I want everyone to get out of this class is the ability to recognize and think critically about how research and statistics are used in everyday contexts. So here's your assignment. This is entirely for extra credit. It's not formally graded. Here's your assignment. Somewhere outside of the academic context, outside of this class, outside of any other class you're taking, something in just your everyday life. I want you to find some kind of an example of how statistics are used. So it could be from a news report, it could be from some kind of a website, a social media posting, it could be something related to recreation or hobbies or sports, just not from academic stuff. So because we haven't talked much about what statistics is, anything where numbers are being used to organize, summarize, or interpret information counts. So here's what you're going to do for this assignment. You are either going to upload an attachment containing the file, the information that you got, or a link, check it and make sure that it works, to that content, and you're going to type up a short written explanation of how statistics were used. A couple of sentences are generally just fine. You're going to post all this to the discussion board in the designated spot. Additionally, in this module, there also is an algebra quiz. This quiz is designed to test your current level of skill at things like order of operations, things like rounding numbers, that sort of thing. If you complete that as well, it's going to be graded in the sense that I'll give you a percentage on it, but it's extra credit overall. That grade, the percentage that you get, does not impact your final grade. You just get points for turning it in. So the grade will tell you roughly how prepared you are for the kind of math skills you're going to need to have in the course. But whether you do really well or really poorly on it, that won't affect your final grade. You're just going to get bonus points. So if you submit both of these assignments, they are going to be worth a total of 6 bonus points. And again, pay attention to the relevant deadlines. But 6 total points is 1% of the class, so it'll give you an extra 1% boost to your final grade, which could wind up pushing you over the line to the next letter grade when the semester ends. So again, make sure that you're uploading that to the discussion board, your example of statistics, and that you are uploading in the designated place the algebra quiz, and make sure those are completed by the listed deadlines. All right, that's all that we've got for this big idea portion of Module 0, and this is the end of the module itself. Once you're finished with this and reviewing all the materials, complete your assignments, and then whenever you're ready, I will be waiting for you over there in Module 1 to start introducing you to the content of the course. All right.